Wow, this year has been so amazing. It all started on February 18th, 2016, when I received my official letter stating I was going to be the Grand Worthy Advisor of Nebraska for 2016-2017. Tears were shed, phone calls were made, and the planning began. On June 12, 2016, after standing at the altar and promising to give my all to Nebraska Rainbow, I was installed as Grand Worthy Advisor. I watched with excitement as the Grand Officers and Grand Representatives for 2016-2017 were installed, and I knew this was a great Grand family. We started our travels just 4 days after being installed as we headed to Kearney, Nebraska for Grand Bethel. I watched as the Grand Bethel honored Queen Brittany McElfresh and Miss Nebraska Job's daughter, Nikki Pond, led Nebraska Job's daughters with dignity and grace, and I got a picture with the Grand Master of Nebraska, Dennis Ricks. After their opening session, we got some much-needed ice cream. The next day, Lynn Broyhill had a painting party put on by Christine Smith. It was so much fun, and everyone's paintings turned out beautiful. The next day, Lynn Broyhill had a beautiful initiation for Ashlyn Cooper, and a baby dedication for my cousin's 2 daughters, Brooklyn and Harper. For their addenda, they had me perform various activities and asked me different questions to see if I was smarter than an American Rainbow Girl. They made us some delicious hot dogs and hamburgers and then watched Toy Story 2. The next morning, we went to my church, River's Edge, before we headed to Plainview. At Plainview Assembly number 34, they performed a beautiful Masonic veterans ceremony, and for their addenda, they made me find cows around their assembly room and roll around in money to try and collect money for the Mom Shirk Educational Loan Fund. We then headed home to conclude our first weekend of grand travels. On June 23rd, Shelby Walsh and I started our journey to Arkansas's Grand Assembly. I got to meet 3 2016-2017 Grand Worthy Advisors, and got to visit with some old friends that I met at Supreme Seminar in 2013. Their Grand Worthy Advisor, Busy, had a great Classically You session, and I got to witness Becca Trishman be installed as the new Grand Worthy Advisor of Arkansas. On Sunday morning, before we headed back home, we stopped in Missouri at their Grand Assembly for their opening session. Their Grand Worthy Advisor, Kenzie, had a beautiful and fun opening session, and I got to meet their soon-to-be Grand Worthy Advisor for 2016-2017, Aaron McCann. Sadly, we had to leave before their grand banquet to head back home. On July 8th, Shelby and I packed up her car once more, but this time to head to Kansas's Grand Assembly. Their Grand Worthy Advisor, Sarah, had a beautiful Follow Your Light grand session, and I also got to meet and chat with their soon-to-be Grand Worthy Advisor of 2016-2017, Jory Barnett. We got to see and talk to our friends from Kansas and even got to make new friends. On Saturday night, we got to go bowling and go go-karting, which I won both of. We even brought out the selfie stick to take lots of pictures. They sadly do not do installation at Grand Assembly, so I did not get to watch Jory get installed, but I bet it was a beautiful installation. On Sunday morning, Shelby and I headed back home to conclude our out-of-state Grand Assembly travels. On July 16th, we packed up our car bright and early and headed to Athena Assembly number 24 for their grand visitation. They did a wonderful Masonic heritage ceremony, and for their addenda, they had me participate in a pageant with 2 other girls. I was so shocked when they announced that I had won. We then headed to Fremont for Nebraska DeMollay's conclave, where our past state rainbow beau, Dakota Wells, was installed as state master counselor. Afterwards, they had a dance where we danced the night away and got to witness our own grand service, Kylie Fees, win Nebraska DeMollay's state sweetheart. The next morning, we headed to Weeping Water Assembly number 5 for their grand visitation. When we arrived, we got a special surprise visit from our member of the House of Gold, Thelma Domingo. Weeping Water had an initiation for Taylor, and we had a surprise halfway through when the lights went out, so we all pulled out our phones and used our flashes as lights to continue initiation. We will definitely never forget that one. We then headed home to conclude the second weekend of grand travel. On July 20th, I had the honor to represent Rainbow in the Rivercade Parade in Sioux City, Iowa. I got to ride in a '57 Chevy convertible with the Abu Bakr vintage wheels. On July 23rd, we headed to Lincoln Assembly No. 6 for their grand visitation, where they held an initiation for Cambry and Georgia. For their addenda, they had me answer questions about U.S. history, where I found out I didn't pay very good attention during my history classes. We then headed to West Side Assembly No. 22, where we had another initiation, and this time for Blair. For their addenda, they quoted the song "Life Ain't Always Beautiful," and we did the electric slide. Afterwards, we headed to Elkhorn Waterloo Assembly No. 38 for their grand visitation. Kylie Fees gave a tribute to the American flag, and 2 DeMolay boys came to perform their flower talk for us. We then got to play musical horses and made flip-flops. On Sunday morning, we headed to Benson Diana No. 2 for their grand visitation, where they held initiation for Latea. For their addenda, they read me some facts about cowgirls and had me perform various activities. We also had the Traveling Moms addenda, where we made sure that Cindy is proficient in rainbow. This concluded our grand travels. On July 29th, my mom and I hopped on a plane and headed for Providence, Rhode Island for Supreme Assembly. We got to witness Britt Jorns be acting Supreme service and Catherine and Josette sing songs in the Supreme Choir. Mallory and I had the honor of being in the Cavalcade of Flags and jurisdictional skits. On Wednesday, Betty was installed as Supreme Patriotism. Attending Supreme as a Grand Worthy Advisor was truly an amazing experience. On August 4th, the day after I got home from Supreme, I represented Nebraska Rainbow as the Grand Worthy Advisor in the Dakota Thurston County Fair Parade with the girls from Lynn Broyhill Assembly No. 12. On that Friday, Lynn Broyhill went to support our Grand Outer Observer, Briley Ewing, in her musical Mary Poppins. On August 7th, Lynn Broyhill Assembly No. 12 had installation of officers, where Selena Roth was installed as Worthy Advisor. The next Saturday, I attended Westside Assembly No. 22's installation of officers, where Lisa Vance was installed as Worthy Advisor. On August 21st, I attended Benson Diana Assembly No. 2's installation of officers, where Nikki Ryan was installed as Worthy Advisor. On August 27th, I attended the Nebraska State Fair with the State Master Counselor of Nebraska DeMolay, Dakota Wells, to help with the CHIP event. The next day, I attended our State Rainbow Bow Jack Busson's installation of officers, where he was installed as Master Counselor of Lincoln Chapter of DeMolay. On September 3rd, I helped Westside Assembly No. 22 initiate Sammy. On September 17th, I attended Athena Assembly No. 24's installation of officers, where Jewel Sansoni was installed as Worthy Advisor. The next day, I helped Lynn Broyhill Assembly No. 12 with the Kids Corner at the Alzheimer's Walk in Sioux City. The next Tuesday, I went to Laura Chapter No. 301, Order of the Eastern Star, to help Lynn Broyhill perform the ribbon ceremony. On October 9th, Selena, Jocelyn, and I headed down to Lincoln Assembly No. 6 to help them initiate Kaylee and Elise into Rainbow. The next Saturday and Sunday on October 15th and 16th, Nebraska Rainbow came together for Mini Grand in Norfolk, Nebraska. We learned to line dance, made cards for military members, and got to learn about the other Masonic organizations. We played some rainbow football, where the girls got to put their rainbow knowledge to the test to make it down the football field. At supper, we all dressed up like cowgirls and even got to hear the song, "I'm a Little Teapot." We got to go swimming, mini golfing, and watch Inside Out. In the morning, I announced the grand appointments and talked about some rainbow things. Afterwards, they had initiation at Plainview for Casey Doubt. On November 13th, we had our Grand Cross of Color ceremony and brunch in Lincoln, Nebraska. The next Saturday, I was able to attend a dinner at the Scottish Rite in Sioux City and speak on behalf of Rainbow. On December 4th, I headed down to Plattsmouth for initiation for Riley and Cassie from Weeping Water Assembly No. 5. It was held at the Masonic Home, and they also had help from Athena Assembly No. 24. The next Saturday, Lynn Broyhill held an initiation for Maddie and Nevaeh. On Sunday, I went to Lincoln to help them initiate Amaya. On January 7th, I attended Laura Chapter No. 301, Order of the Eastern Star installation of officers. On January 21st, Lynn Broyhill had an installation of officers, and Briley was installed as worthy advisor. The next day, I attended Bethel number 27's installation of officers and witnessed my first Job's Daughters installation. On January 28th, my mom and I traveled to Cedar Falls, Iowa for Iowa Rainbow's Winter Jam. We made tie blankets and gift bags for cancer patients, and then I witnessed Iowa's Grand Officers perform initiation. On February 2nd, my dad and I traveled out to Kearney for Grand Lodge. That night, we attended their formal banquet, and the next morning, I was introduced and had the honor to speak at their opening session. My dad and I explored Kearney a little bit before their American-themed banquet that night. On February 11th, I attended Dee Malay's Sweetheart Ball in Omaha, where I got to watch our own Brianne be crowned as Omaha's chapter sweetheart. The next day, I attended Lynn Broyhill's Valentine's Day party and played some bingo. On February 18th, I helped Westside with their installation of officers, where Danny and Elisa were installed as co-worthy advisors. Later that night, I attended Dee Malay's Sweetheart Ball in Lincoln. The next day, I attended my first Job's Daughters initiation at Bethel 15, where they initiated 2 new girls into Job's Daughters. On February 20th, I had the huge honor of speaking at the Conference of Grand Masters in North America. I got to meet Miss Susan Renigold, the Supreme Worthy Advisor, and I also got to meet Miss International Job's Daughter, Supreme Bethel Honored Queen, International Master Counselor, and the International Congress Secretary, as well as many Grand Masters from different jurisdictions. On February 25th, I attended Benson Diana No. 2's installation of officers and installation of pledge officers. Sarah Perron and Brianne Throckmorton were installed as co-worthy advisors. The next day, I went to Lincoln Chapter for Dee Malay's installation of officers. On March 4th, my mom and I traveled to Des Moines, Iowa for Iowa's Spring Fling. I, again, had the honor to witness their grand officers perform initiation, and we also got to play glow-in-the-dark mini-golf. The next day, I was able to attend Lincoln Assembly No. 6 installation of officers, where Rachel Bussin was installed as worthy advisor. On March 18th, we had the spring leadership event in Bellevue. In the morning, we had practice, followed by initiation by the grand officers with the help of some representatives. Afterwards, a few of us went to the Bob Carey pedestrian bridge to take pictures in Iowa and Nebraska. The next day, I attended Athena Assembly No. 24's installation of officers, where Chastity was installed as worthy advisor. On March 25th, I attended Courtney Edelmeyer's reception as Miss Nebraska Congeniality for Job's Daughters International. The next day, I attended Lynn Broyhill's Spring Tea, where the Abu Becker chanters came to sing to us. On April 25th, I traveled out to Central City for Ashton Stewart, Miss Nebraska Job's Daughter, and Hannah King, Grand Bethel Honor Queen's reception. It was a special day because they revealed their pictures on the wall in their Bethel. On April 7th, I headed to Kearney for Grand York Rite, where I brought greetings on behalf of Nebraska Rainbow. On Saturday, we headed home so I could ride the Elephant Inn at the Abu Becker Shrine Circus in Sioux City, Iowa. It was such an amazing experience. On April 23rd, I headed to Omaha for Elkhorn Waterloo No. 38's installation of officers, where Madeline Motes was installed as worthy advisor. On April 29th, Lynn Broyhill had initiation for Brooke Taylor. The next day, Lynn Broyhill went to church at First Lutheran Church in South Sioux City. Later that day, Cindy and I headed to Omaha for Westside's Mad Hatter Tea Party, where we got to hang out and make some hats. On May 7th, Jocelyn and I helped Southgate Assembly in Des Moines, Iowa with their initiation. On May 9th and 10th, I attended Eastern Star's Grand Chapter in Kearney. On Tuesday, I had the honor of carrying in the rainbow flag, bringing greetings on behalf of Nebraska Rainbow, and giving the Rose Lecture. On Wednesday, I got to watch Hannah King, the Grand Bethel Honored Queen of Nebraska Job's Daughters, be initiated into Eastern Star. On May 26th through the 29th, I attended Oklahoma's Grand Assembly with Cindy Peterson and Jocelyn Walls. I got to bring greetings on behalf of Nebraska Rainbow, hang out with my fellow Grand Worthy Advisors from other jurisdictions, talk to Sue, the Supreme Worthy Advisor again, and meet some new people. It was such a blast, and we even got to witness the Grand Worthy Advisor get proposed to. My last travels as Grand Worthy Advisor was to Shrine Bowl on June 3rd. I got to ride in the convertible for the parade while the girls carried signs representing Rainbow. I also was presented on the field before kickoff with the Masonic youth leaders in Nebraska. It was so much fun hanging out with everyone and talking to some of the other Masonic youth organizations. I just would like to say thank you to everyone who has helped me this past year, whether it was traveling with me, helping me figure out my plans, lifting my spirits, being there for me, or just having fun with me along the way. This year has truly been the greatest ride of my life. I cannot thank everyone enough for helping me along the way. I couldn't imagine this year being any better. You are all truly the greatest. I am proud to say I am a member of the International Order of the Rainbow for Girls in Nebraska. Respectfully submitted in Rainbow Love and Service, Sarah Mooney, Grand Worthy Advisor of Nebraska, 2016-2017.